Hello there and welcome to Luminar NEO All Sliders Explained, the show where we describe and explain you every single slider in this powerful photo editing application. Now, if you've never been here before, my name is Brus and I'm a creator and founder of Clever Photographer. Now, before we're going to start, I have a few things I want to cover. First of all, at the end of the video, we're going to give you our own and very popular Luminar NEO shortcut cheat sheet. So stay until the end so you can get your own copy. The second, if you want to follow us along, make sure you head into the description, follow the link there and get your sample files before we're going to start. If you don't own Luminar NEO, you can also follow the link in the description and use our own discount code Clever Photographer. That way you get additional 20% off and you can get your own copy. And finally, we want to ask you to like and comment on our videos and also follow our channel so we can keep creating content like this. In this video tutorial, I'm going to show you how to use the Portrait Background Removal tool. Now, this tool is part of the masking tools available in Luminar NEO. It allows you to select a human in your photos and automatically remove the background around them. In addition, the tools come with the Refinements brush panel that enables you to help the AI engine refine the background removal mask. Now, we have a lot to go through, so let's jump straight into it. As you can see, we are in Luminar NEO and right now we are in the catalog module. We have a selection of sample files here, and as always, if you want to follow me along, all you need to do is to jump into the description, click on the link there, and that will bring you into our Dropbox account. From there, you can download the files and do the edit on your own computer. To start with, we're going to be using this portrait here, so you need to click on it to select it, and then move it to the edit module by clicking on the edit button on the top of your screen. So first, let's start by looking at where the Portrait Background Removal tool is. So as you can see, with the new update, we have the layers properties here. Now, before, we used to have this option only when we were working with the layers panel. However, now, right from the beginning, right from the import, we have the layer properties here. So we can open it by clicking on its name, and that will bring us the properties and masking tab. So now we need to click on a masking, and inside of the masking we have 5 different options here: brush, linear gradient, radial gradient, mask AI, and portrait background. So it's here on the portrait background where the portrait background removal tool is. So now, how do we remove the background? Well, we need to simply click on the portrait background, and that will take a second to do the AI work to select the background and prepare it for the removal. Once it's finished, it will show this remove button. So to remove the background, you simply need to click on it. Now let's have a look at the result. I think it did very good job. You can see around the hair, it did great, around the nails, around the body. The only parts that are not great are around the cheeks, where we can see a little bit of the gray background. So how do we fix this? Well, for this, we're going to use the Refinements brush section. So we need to come back to our layer properties. We are still in the portrait background, and now we have the Refinements section on the bottom. So we click on it, and that will open the whole section with multiple different buttons and slider. Now, before we're going to focus on the buttons, let's talk about the overlays that appear on the image. We have the blue, transparent, and orange. These are the zones that the AI system is using to recognize the background and the object or the human. So we have 3 zones here. The blue zone represents the background. The transparent zone represents the transition between the background and the main object. And the orange zone represents the object. So these are not masks. These are just guidelines that helps the AI system to recognize the background and the object and then remove the background. Now, by adjusting the zones, we can help the AI to refine the selection and do a better job at removing the background. But how are we going to do this? Well, it's actually very simple. We're going to use a simple brush for this. So let's go back to our Refinements brush section. Here we have 3 switch buttons following the names of the zones. We have the transition, object, and background. So whenever we click on it and select it, we will be adjusting that specific zone. So transition, object, and background. After that, we have a simple size slider, And by adjusting the size, we can adjust the size of the brush, which we're going to use to adjust the zone. So I'm going to quickly show you how it works. However, if you don't understand completely, don't worry about it, as you will understand as we go through the different examples and sample files. So the AI is using the orange zone and the object zone as the part that highlights and mark the object or the human. That is the part which is supposed to stay and nothing should be removed from it. So let's click on the object, and as you can see, the button turns orange. Then we can adjust the size, and then we can simply brush on the parts where we think that they need to stay on the image. So we can do something like this. It takes a second and it's simply added to the image. Now, if we would want to add some additional parts of the image, we could also paint over this part, and that would then add some additional parts of the image. So as you can see, it's adding some of the gray background into it. Now let's move to the background. Everything that is blue represents the background zone, and these are the parts that will be completely removed from the image. So as you can see, it's all around the image except where the transition zone is. So we could simply select this part, paint over it, and add it to the background, and basically to be removed later. And finally, we have the transition zone, which will basically help us to refine the edges of the subject or the human. So let's click on it. And as you can see, it kind of grays out, and the reason being is that it's represented by transparency on the image itself. Now we can zoom to the area where we were not happy with the gray background. And as you can see on this part, the object color, the orange, is a little bit too close to the edge of the face. So to fix that, we can paint over it with a transition brush. So let's make it a little bigger, and let's paint over the cheek just like this. It takes a moment. However, as you can see, the gray has been removed. If we need to add some to it, we can paint over some other parts. And as you can see, it does a really good job of making sure that the gray is removed. Now let's zoom back, and then we can zoom into this area where it's the same case. Again, the object orange color is too close to the edge of the face, so we can use the transition brush and paint over it to basically refine the edge of the face. It takes a moment, but again, it does excellent job of doing it. Now we can zoom back, and that's almost it. Now let's see if we can fix this part. So we're gonna zoom in, and basically what is missing here is the transition. It's missing the transition zone. So what we should really do is to paint at this part with our transition brush to make sure that we get a nice edge around the hair and around the head. Let's see, something like this. And again, it did excellent job. So we zoom out, and we are almost finished here. All we need to do is to see the result. Now to remove the zones, all you need to do is to collapse the Refinements brush section. So you can come back here, click on the name or the arrow, and as you can see, it removes the zones and the overlays from the image. So the background is removed, it's looking great, and it's ready for some future layers panel editing. You could add a background to it, you could put an overlay over it, and really the creativity has no limits now. So I have two more things I want to show you with this example. The first one is once you close the layer properties and start to edit the image. So let's say we jump into the enhance and we do some accent editing, and maybe we jump into some landscape and add a little bit of golden hour colors to it. How would we now come back and edit the zones and the mask of the background removal? Well, it's really simple. We can come back to our layer properties, open the masking again, and click on a portrait background. However, as you can see, we don't get the option for the Refinements brush immediately. What you need to do is to click on remove, and then we have the Refinements brush section available. We can click on it, open it, and we can do some additional adjustments to our portrait background removal zones. Finally, if you make a mistake with your refinements brushes, or if you're not happy with what you've done, you have to remember that at the moment, there isn't an option to undo. So the only way to reset the mask is to go on the top of your layer properties and click on the little arrow here. This will reset the tool and you will be able to start with the portrait background removal from the beginning. So you simply click on reset tool, and as you can see, we have the background again. Now we can again click on portrait background. Once it's ready, we get the button, we can again click on remove. Now the background has been removed and the result is exactly the same. It's very well done except the gray parts next to her face. Now I show you how we can adjust this by using the Refinements brush. However, there is another way how to do this, and for that we need to remember that the portrait background removal is part of our masking tools. So let's go back to our masking tab. And here we have the brush, linear gradient, radial gradient, and mask AI. First of all, let's click on mask actions. And here let's click on show. So this will basically show the mask of the human. So now we can close the mask actions and we can choose our brush. First we need to zoom to the face. And as you can see, the mask is also on the parts where is the gray background. So we simply need to remove or erase this part. So on our brush, we need to click on erase. And now we need to adjust the size of the brush. With that, we need to adjust the softness to something like this. And now we can very carefully paint away this part. Now we can again adjust the size and very carefully paint away the part of the background we want to remove. So again, we can move around, we can keep adjusting the brush and see if we're happy with this. Now we move to the other side of the face where we do exactly the same, very carefully. Now if we do a mistake, we can then simply switch to paint and paint over the same area to bring it back. So go back to our erase and keep painting on the area we want to remove. And I think something like this looks very good. Let's just bring back a little bit of the face here. And now let's zoom out, come back to our mask actions, and let's hide the mask. Now, as you can see, when we zoom in, the result is great. And this is basically another way of how you can adjust the mask and how you can enhance the portrait background removal. So this example was for you to understand that the portrait background removal is only the first step. It does an excellent job, however, sometimes there needs to be some other fine adjustments. And that's when the other masking tools step in. You have the brush, you have the linear gradient, you have the radial gradient, mask AI, and all together they are extremely powerful set of tools that you can use for masking. So as you can see, we are back in the catalog module and it's time to work on a sample image number 2. So for this, we're going to be using this lady. And again, we need to bring it into the edit module. So make sure that you select it and click on the edit on the top of your screen. So what we're going to do here, we're going to remove the background around the lady. And as you can see, this is a little bit more complex. So we're going to work further with our refinements brush and maybe some additional masking tools. Once we're happy with that, we will remove the background and that will be a great time to show you some additional features we now have with the layers panel. So let's jump straight into it. Once again, we are going into our main toolbar and we're going to click at the layers properties. On the top, we need to go in our masking tab and here we need to click on the portrait background. The AI will select the background and once it's ready, it will show us the remove button. Click on the button and give it a few seconds to remove the background. Now, since the background is removed, you can see that it did pretty good job. However, it will need a little bit of our help. So for that, let's start by going into our refinements brush section. And again, by opening that, we will see our familiar zones. Again, just to remind ourselves, the transparent part is the transition. The orange part represents the object zone. And then the blue part represents the background zone. So first, let's close this and let's have a look at what we need to adjust. We need to bring back piece of hair back. Then we need to fix this part as it's leaking through the background. We need to fix the parts around her hair. And then there is a little bit of background leaking through here. So let's open the Refinements brush and let's focus on the backpack. So for this, we need to zoom in. And how are we gonna tackle this? Well, it's very simple. We just need to add this to the part of the object. So for this, we need to select our object button, adjust the size of our brush, and then very simply paint over this part as we want this part to be inside of our image. And as you can see, very simply, that has been added. Now let's move and let's see if we can zoom even further. And for now, we need to check and adjust this part. So we have the part of the back which is looking good. However, we have some of the background leaking through here. So there are multiple different ways we can do this. Let's start by using the transition. So we're going to click on the transition button. Again, adjust the size. And let's see if we paint over this part, if it's going to fix it. So it did half decent job. I'm not crazy about it. So the next option after this is to turn our button into the background and actually paint over this part. So again, we're gonna just paint around the area we want to be removed. So something like this. Let's see, it did all right job. Now we need to adjust the brush again, maybe a little bit bigger. And now we can paint over this area again and see if it did a good job. Now it did better job at this. And to help even further, we can click on the object and paint over this part. Now I made a mistake, I'm painting with the background. So we need to click on the object. And now we need to paint over this part to see if that's going to help. Let's see. And I think it's much better. Now let's zoom out. And let's see what else we had here. I think it was the part of the hair. But first, let's close the refinement brush. And I think the result is very decent here. So the hair now. So let's open it again and zooming in to our hair. Now, as you can see, at the moment, the AI is thinking that this is part of the object. That can work for most of the hair. However, whenever we get these parts where there is lots of hair with the transparency, that's a good time to use the transition zone. So we're going to adjust the size. And let's paint over this part to see if we can remove it as well. Now it does pretty good job here, so I'm happy with that. Here as well, excellent. So let's just paint over this part, and that's about it. So that's good. Now we can use the background zone to remove some of the parts we don't want to be in the image, and that's that. Now we can move to the other side of the head, where again we can use the transition brush and paint over this part here where there is some transparency. And again, I think it did a really good job here to remove the background through the hair. Now let's zoom out. And there were some other parts. There was this part which was kind of leaking through. So we will zoom into that, and fixing of this will be really simple, as we simply need to add this to our background zone. So we will click on our background zone, adjust the size of the brush, and just paint over it. Once we're happy, it will simply remove all of this together with the background. And there we are. I think we're almost there. Let's just zoom out again. Let's close the refinement brush to see the result. And I think by looking at it like this, for the moment, I'm quite happy with what we have. So the next thing we're gonna do here is to add the background to the image. So basically we want the background behind the lady. So for this, we need to go into our layers panel and click on the plus sign. Here we can select one of the pictures in my images, or you can bring new one by using the load image. For us, we already have the background ready, so we just click on it and import it into our new layers. Now, as you can see, now it's stretched across the picture, and what we need to do is to use one of the new features, which is called image mapping, and we can use the fit, fill, or stretch to basically stretch it across the image. For this one, I like the fill, as it keeps the ratio of the original image. Now the final thing is to increase the opacity so we can see everything. And now comes the magic. We can come into our layers panel and very simply by drag and dropping the layers, we can place it behind the original image. So as you can see, we have the lady on the top of a new background looking absolutely amazing. So once again, we are back in catalog module, and for this third sample, we're gonna be using this image to start with. So select it and then move into the edit module by clicking on the edit button on the top of your screen. So what we're gonna do here, we're gonna remove the background and then we're gonna export this image with a transparent background. So let's quickly jump into our layer properties, and you already know the workflow. We're gonna click on masking, portrait background, and then the remove button. It takes a few seconds and it should be ready for us to use it. Now I already knew before we started that it's gonna do a great job, and when you look at it, it does an amazing job of removing the background, so we don't need to do any adjustments to it. Now before we're gonna export it, we wanna crop it a little bit. Now we need to go to Crop AI tool, and in the ratio drop-down box, we need to select the 3. Now we can go ahead and use the handles to adjust the crop around the image to something close to the main subject. So I think something like this is looking really good. Once we're happy with it, we just click on apply. After that, it does the cropping and the image is ready for the exporting. Now there are multiple different ways you can export, but for this time, we're gonna right click on the image and choose the export. This will prompt us with the export window where we can choose the name. So we're gonna call it Lonely Man. Then we can choose the location, which I'm already happy about. And now in the settings, we can choose 3 different formats for the transparency export. We can choose the JPEG 2000, we can choose the TIFF, and we can choose the PNG. Now PNG or TIFF works very well. So for us, let's go for the PNG this time. And let's make sure that our Save Transparency checkbox is checked in. After that, when we have everything ready, all we need to do is to click on Save. Now it's gonna export the file, and when it's gonna be finished, we're gonna head back into our catalog module. Now for the final time, we are back in our catalog module where we need to select our new background. So for this sample file, we're gonna be using this background, and once we click on it, we can move into our edit module. So as you guessed it, what we wanna do here, we wanna place the man right here in front of the scene. So for this, we can go into our layers panel and click on the plus button. Here we need to click on the load image, and then we need to navigate to the location of our file we just exported. So as I call it Lonely Man, it's here, and then I can just simply click on open. Once it's imported, it appears in our My Images section, so we can simply click on it and add it into our layers. Now again, it's been placed on the top of our original image, so the first thing we need to do is to adjust the opacity to 100. Now we can go ahead and use these little handles around to adjust its position and place it wherever we think it works. So let's do something like this. And once we're happy with the result, we can leave it the way it is. So it's already looking great. And the next step would be to color match the subject with its background. Now to do that, you can come back tomorrow to our YouTube channel and watch the new tutorial which will show you how to do the color matching with the Luminar NEO tools. It will be lots of fun, so I hope you see you there. However, in the meantime, I also want to remind you that our Luminar NEO Power Bundle is now coming with 93 incredible backgrounds that can be used just like you've seen in this tutorial. So make sure you check it out. The link to our Luminar NEO Power Bundle is in the description. Now today I show you how you can remove the background, I show you where the tool is, I show you how you can reset the background, how you can work with the removal background zones and how you can adjust them, and how you can also use some additional masking tools available with the portrait removal background tool. So now it's time to get your own Luminar NEO shortcut cheat sheet. All you have to do is to head to our website cleverphotography.com/luminargift and get it right now. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you had fun and I hope you learned something new. Please don't forget to follow our channel and also check out our other videos covering Luminar NEO. For today, thank you very much for watching. My name was Jacob Bors and I can't wait to see you in the next one.